My name is Mike Chadwick. I now reside at Penwitham, near Preston, and I am 49 years old.
And what's your connection with Chorley and the military?
I lived in Chorley from about 1974 through to 1979. My father was a police officer, and if you can settle down as such in the police in the 60s, 70s and 80s, that my dad did in Chorley. I joined the Royal Marines at 16 in 1979 and continued to live at home on and off during the 9 years that I was in the Royal Marines, and then subsequently to join Lancashire Constabulary and left Chorley as such to live with and ultimately marry my wife Monica in 1993.
You started at the cadets in Chorley?
Yes, one of the best things that I did, being a young lad looking for some adventure, and I'd previously been in the Scouts and before that the Cubs, so I've been in a uniform of one sort or another ever since I was about 4 or 5, and I was introduced to number 4 Battalion, the Queen's Lancashire Regiment Cadets, based at Devonshire Road in Chorley, and I spent 2.5 very, very happy years as an Army cadet. I did somewhat let the side down, as my commanding officer told me, from Chorley ACF when I joined the Navy, which is obviously where the Royal Marines are. And at 16 years old, I was looking for adventure and excitement, nothing more mature than that. And I suppose I expected to go to Northern Ireland, and that was probably it.
Tell us a little bit more about the build-up to your unit going down to the Falklands.
Well, the 2nd of April 1982, the whole unit was about to go on leave for Easter that same day. So in the early hours, the accommodation block, or grot as they were effectively known, was rudely wakened by a signaller running in and saying the Falklands have been invaded. And we said, shut up, go back to sleep. So it quickly became apparent later on that same day that something serious was happening. Being only 18 at the time, I really didn't understand the full effects of what was likely to happen. 4-5 Commander was my unit. I was in X-ray company at that time as a company signaller, and most of the unit shipped out through Southampton, I think, to head down south within the week. But my company and a Yankee company, which was coming back to the unit following a detachment away in Borneo, were left behind for an extra week. During that time, we managed to get our kit sorted out, final preparations as best as we could do. Then we caught the rest of the unit up by flying down from Lucas, RAF Lucas in Scotland, to Ascension Island, and there we waited probably another 10 days for the fleet to arrive. So I think we definitely got the better end of that deal, flying by courtesy of the RAF.
What action did you see in the Falklands?
Shortly after landing at what's called the canning factory, or formerly was a meat processing unit at Ajax Bay on East Falklands, and having spent about a week there digging in, literally watching almost on a panoramic television, but in real life, the air raids coming in. Actually, one defining event for me was an A4 Skyhawk, which, having flown from my right down the Sound to bomb the ships, banked sharply to the left and flew and I was sure he was flying towards me. Not that he would have been able to see me, I'm sure, but he was down on the deck, the sea. He'd finished his bombing of a ship. I think he'd missed, and he was flying like the clappers to get away from the various anti-aircraft fire that was coming up at him, and was flying below my height. I was on the side of a hill, perhaps 200 metres above the sea level, and this A4 Skyhawk flew right up and over us, probably 50 feet, and to stare down from my position at this A4 flying up towards me, I could see into the cockpit. I could see the helmet of the pilot and the goggles and the mask on the front of the face, and being young and stupid, I never thought to actually take cover. on reflection I should have done, and it wasn't only when my company commander at the time, who will always speak to me, Captain Gardner, but he did end up as a brigadier in the Royal Marines, said something very eloquent, but can't say the same here because it also has some profanities in it, and made sure that I got my head down in the slit trench pretty quickly. That was one slightly humorous and noticeable event.
Did you lose any of your comrades on the Falklands?
Yes, in total the group, 4-5 Commando group, which did not just have Royal Marines in but had members from the Army and from the Navy as well, lost 13 throughout the whole period, and our first casualties came shortly after the rifle companies had left our original landing site at Ajax Bay, near the canning factory, which was now being used to store munitions and food, because it was the only place that had a hard standing around there, and it also had the hospital next door to it. And having left that area, within a matter of hours the Argentinian Air Force had bombed it, and during that one incident on the 27th of May, I think, 5 lads were killed, including 3 that I'd got very friendly with over the previous 18 months.
How would you say the war affected you?
At the time, 18. I actually turned 19 the day I arrived back home here in Chorley. And it's really only been since I had a family myself and 2 children that the full impact and the thoughts of what happened have really fulfilled my emotional maturity around what actually happened 30 years ago. At the time, I was perhaps a little cold in terms of the casualties we received. It was very much a case of we were there to do the job, and sadly that's what can happen in war. And whilst I lost 4 or 5 friends, colleagues, oppos, we were all prepared, if necessary, to die. We would not want to have let anybody else down, and I too made a will which said something like that. However, having had kids myself, and I can see now what my parents must have gone through, and many other parents must have gone through subsequently, because whilst I was there and sometimes the deprivations were very bad, no food, wet through, cold, etc., it's the parents and loved ones that actually make the greatest burden.
Would you like to go back to the Falklands?
It's strange to say that, Steve, yes. I hope to go perhaps this year or maybe next year. I entertain a notion of being able to walk the Yomp, 4 or 5 fulfilled or completed the Yomp, which is walking with heavy weights on. And it was approximately 75 miles, I think, and took the 28 days from start to finish. And I know other people have done it since. I'm not too sure whether my body can do that anymore, but I would like to try, and I'd like to visit some of the places I've visited, such as Douglas Bay Settlement. That was the first place where I realised the enormity of what was happening, and for me that was the personal touch for the people of the Falklands.
Would it be a conclusion for you, or will this experience never leave you?
It will never leave me. I think back on what has happened, and I think back on one particular friend who sadly was killed, and in times of my own emotional or work life issues, think back to him and use him rather like a sounding board. Not that I speak to him, but I certainly think about the opportunities I've been given that he never had, because he died when he was 19, and that's helped, hopefully anyway, keep me on the straight and narrow.
Mike, thank you very much for speaking with us. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.